that there we go. We have some sound. It'll just be one moment while I get everything else set fully up. Alright. I will try and vaguely check the live stream chat just for volume levels. Hopefully this is okay. But without any further waiting, welcome to round 2. Unfortunately not round 1. There was some PC failure last week, but we are here for round 2 of the 1994 Custom Tour Championship. We're at Riverside this week. A circuit, unfortunately, in real life, not even with us, I believe, in 1994. It had already closed. I think it closed in 1989. But even still, thankfully, due to the joys of sim racing, we do not have to bend by such things as where housing estates now exist. We can run any circuit we want within reason. So we are here at Riverside. Completely new set of cars for all of the drivers involved. The first 3 seasons, so 1991, 1992, 1993, which only 1993 was broadcasted previously. That was season 3. It's on this channel if you wish to check some of the previous races. Those were all running with the CT450 regulations. Round 3 also had the CT300s as a multi-class series, but that's getting beside the point. We are here now with CT500s, new for this season. It's going to be continuing for next season at the very least as well. And it's been provided an interesting challenge for a lot of the drivers. A lot more movement between the various engine types. Different strategies being pulled out by quite a few of the teams. We've seen some really interesting builds compared to previous seasons, which we'll get to see around the track in just a couple of moments of time. These regulations are 500 horsepower or up to 500 horsepower vehicles, between 450 and 500. Approximately 2 kilograms for every horsepower, so these are actually quite powerful things. 500 horsepower for about just over 1,000 kilograms. So very, very powerful machines. Included with this, we also have, for the first time, rear-wheel drive and all-wheel drive on the same basic chassis, pretty much, which is also great to see. It's great to see a very varied grid between rear-wheel drive and all-wheel drive. You will hopefully see that reflected as we go racing in a little bit. As for the season, obviously we have only won 1 round. It is our usual point scoring system, but given there's only been 1 round, there isn't really much worry about that. However, Mayonnaise in the Ford Sierra Sapphire all-wheel drive won last round by a relatively comfortable margin, followed by Roberto Tito Saavedra in the rear-wheel drive Mercedes 190E wagon, which is great to see around the track this season. We've also got Toby Larone in the AW11 Toyota MR2, finished 3rd. And then throughout the grid, we've got all sorts on this season. Lots of new manufacturers. Very, very strong showing for Opel this season. We've both got Opel Calibras and Opel Tigras. Mercedes has actually got 3 separate chassis on the grid. We've got the Mercedes 190E, the sort of the standard look, what we're referring to as the DTM look. We've got the wagon, which I'm sure you will see at some point, very, very noticeable vehicle around the track compared to everything else. And you also have the C180. There's only one of those on track, but again, you should hopefully be able to notice that. One of the quite a strong red from Vulcan Racing. We've also got Alfa Romeo, who's making an appearance. A Subaru, which I'm not sure if we'll see that on track today, but again, it's great to see. Honda are entering the Honda Accord. BMW is back once again. So yeah, it's just a really good grid all around, really nice and varied grid. And as qualifying finishes, speaking of him, it seems that our friend Tito Saavedra has actually taken pole position by quite a comfortable margin. Looks like 4/10 in it. So it looks like your grid at the front will be Tito Saavedra in the Mercedes wagon, followed by Jonathan Jefferson in the Pontiac Tigra. Very similar to the Opel Tigra. But that one you'll see a nice sort of blue and red livery. Mercedes C180 in third place of Ara Taranyenko. Toby Lerone in fourth in the Toyota. Mayonnaise fifth in the Ford Sierra. George McGregor in the Honda Accord is sixth. Salami seventh. Long-time runner of the series in the BMW. Terry Nutt in eighth in the Honda Accord. Lux Blanford in one of the other Ford Sierras. And unfortunately, I have lost all of the rest of the results because we are now on the grid, ready to be going. It is a 2-minute wait time, but we will very, very shortly be with some footage. There we go. Should hopefully be showing okay. Do let me know how the volume is on the stream. I'm going to put it down a little bit my side. As you can see, it's a great grid here. So Saavedra, Jefferson, Taranyenko. Lerone we can't quite see. We'll just go to the slightly different camera. There we go. Mayonnaise there alongside McGregor. We then have Salami there next to Terry Nutt. I believe after that is Williams, who I'm not entirely sure why it seems to have a bit of a moment and claim that he's third. I think that's probably just a minor Assetto Corsa issue. Blanford alongside. A little bit further back, I believe next is Leichenberg. Next to Leichenberg will be a driver who I can't find on the list, unfortunately. We are starting to run out of time though. I believe it is actually Peter Stefanek. However, the lights are coming on now. So we are going to move back forwards. And we'll watch as the drivers all pull away. See if we can get a nice camera angle for this. Very good launch from both drivers at the front. Looks like there's been a bit of contact already. Big contact going into turn one. Maybe some all-wheel drive drivers not being particularly safe on that race start. However, that has allowed Saavedra to get a very nice and clean gap here. You can also see, I believe that's Williams has managed to make a big jump. It's got Mayonnaise there, going really deep into the corner, nearly causing an incident, I believe. Williams not too far behind. Let's jump back a little bit, see if we can find out what has happened to the rest of the group. See if we can get one of those sort of Lerone, I think, was one of the sort of more affected drivers in that race start, all the way down to 8th, unfortunately. I'm sure, no doubt, there will be some minor discussions in the stewards' room about that race start. So we're coming now onto the main straight here at Riverside. Now this is the big part of the circuit that we need. Well, I say we need, drivers need to focus quite heavily on. I mean, you can see already here the slipstream. This is going to be really, really powerful for some cars. really where you're going to see the differences in engine as well. You've got the screaming Mercedes engine ahead of the Toyota that we're currently focused on. A very high-pitched sound, but a great sound nonetheless. So we come into then the final banked corner, which almost sort of gives it like a NASCAR aspect to it. Do you want to try and go sort of high, try and get a little bit more of an exit, maybe sacrificing speed? Or do you go low and try and sort of run the shorter distance, but at the expense of your tyres a little bit more? That being said, we'll jump a little bit further back. We're going to see if we can figure out what's happened a little bit further back. I believe we've got a few more people out of place. Oh, that's Toscanini, I think we've just seen go sliding off into the sand there. Oh, nearly causing it. No, a little bit of a contact there. Unfortunately, collecting Lux Blanford. I'm not sure there's really much either driver could do there, but that is a very unfortunate accident to have. We're going to see, we've both got going again, thankfully. We can see other drivers now moving away as well. Jefferson, again, Jefferson was second on the grid, so really a dreadful start of the race for Jefferson. It's very unfortunate to be all the way down here, but I've no doubt that we're coming up towards quite a big pack of drivers ahead, it looks like. The 31 of the team may maybe make it a little bit difficult. Not to say something Jefferson quite wants. A little bit of a barge past there, past his teammate Chris Hood. We can see a massive queue here, all running down the hill. I believe led by Severin Williams, who's being chased down with 3 wide actually going into the final corners. Can only end one way, probably not greatly. That Nissan Skyline R33 of Felipe Bravo. Not sure we've necessarily seen that so far, but once again, great to see just such a variety of cars this season. Severin Williams very much trying to hold everyone back through here. If you can just get past first turn, which he's just done now, turn 2 here, this is pretty much a single line section, so the more that the cars behind squabble, the more they lose time, the more he gets a little bit more confidence. As we can see, they're going on the sand there in the Nissan, which allows through the driver Elwood Donahue in one of the STP Excitement, the blue and red Pontiac. We're going to get probably quite a nice little view run down here. Quite a big gaggle of drivers, to be honest. You can see as well one of the other, this is the Opel Tigra of Arihaga. Making an overtake there, maybe not necessarily much required for that. The car ahead running off the circuit, unfortunately. It sounds like they've already got going. Salami also making the pass on Chris Hood there. Very much a lot of drivers here who really hope to be a lot further ahead, having to kind of make up ground at this point. We're going to jump back a bit further forward. You can see it is definitely some quite large gaps. You can see Taranyenko leading, just going into the final corner there, followed by McGregor. That being said, Toby Larone catching Stefanek ahead reasonably well here. We're going to have a look at best laps as we come across the line in just one moment. Yeah, so we can see Toby Larone actually running a second quicker than Stefanek on the best lap, which I believe was last lap for him. However, still 7/10 away from Saavedra. I mean, if we go last laps as well, we can see it's sort of similar tail across the grid. It's pretty mixed, I think, from the start incident. It's very fair to say. Just making sure that we have a nice little look here. We'll go back to interval because we can now see they're now hoping to get past Stefanek. Hopefully dispatching the driver quite quickly now. If we have a look at tyre compound, we can actually see quite a difference between a lot of the teams. A lot of them opting for hards at the beginning of the race. A few people opting for softs. It looks like, speaking of, Stefanek, I think, has gone off in an unforced error. That is actually going to make Larone's life quite easy. Meanwhile, the gaggle behind continues. This battle sort of for 6th place eventually. I mean, there is quite a gap between sort of Nut just coming past here and Bravo behind, but I do believe that some of those drivers behind will probably end up catching a little bit quicker as we get further into this race. Lovely Repsol Honda Accord there as we come across the start-finish line. I think Leichenberg here now looking for a way past Donahue. It is pretty close between the two, but I think this is going to really sort of highlight. I'm going to go on board actually for a little bit. Leichenberg in the rear-wheel drive vehicle, Donahue also in a rear-wheel drive, and I think unfortunately just missed timing his braking point. Unfortunately not many overtakes visible to us so far this race. That being said, Ari Haga now in the all-wheel drive Opel, hoping to go down the inside and probably make the most of that all-wheel drive launch and stability, and gets a very nice move through that first hairpin. Oh, well, second hairpin technically. Is Leichenberg now going to look for a way back through? We're going to see. I think he's probably just going to go for safety at this point. He's gone very deep on the brakes though, hoping to probably just get a really good run down here, down the back straight. Meanwhile, Salami not too far behind. Let's have a look. Is he reeling in? He's reeling Leichenberg in at least. 2 seconds a lap quicker on the previous lap. Svedra setting yet another purple for this race. I believe we see our first pit stop. Toby Larone choosing to come into the pits quite early, really. We can see there the lovely Toyota Unlimited Racing Development Vehicle. Try and get a better camera angle of that for the broadcast. There we go. So not the best cameras in the world on this circuit. Rejoining just ahead of Chris Hood there. Probably something that he's very happy to be in front and not behind, as he can now track down Elwood Donahue. Now I believe that is going on to the hard, so only running 6 laps on the soft tyre. And are we now going to see him run hards for the rest of the race is going to be the interesting question here. Relatively spread field. That being said, Williams making quite a big slide there. And Terry Nutt being very cheeky, trying to just put his nose down the inside. I think that might work out for him, actually. We've now got his drag race down the back straight. Pretty much a drag strip, really. You see them both coming alongside there. Under the bridge. Into this final bank corner. Now, this is going to be really important, because Williams seems to have lost the sort of track position, but if he gets his line right here, he could maybe make a pass here. Seems like both cars may be understeering quite high up there. But Williams seems to have got down a little bit quicker, a little bit easier. Now has the slipstream, might be able to make a move into turn 1. Here we go. So looking outside, it's actually a little bit further behind than I thought. But managing to make a much bigger catch actually through turn 1, but doesn't have anywhere to use all of that speed. Which has given Terry Nutt quite a comfortable gap now, unfortunately for Williams. That being said, we're going to jump a little bit further back. We can actually see Haga ahead of Felipe Bravo. Leichenberg not too far behind. Same story with Salami. The Spanish co-liveried skyline there. If we actually have a quick look at between the two drivers, not a massive gap. Ari Haga definitely one of the quicker runners in this area of the field. Very unfortunate start of the race for a lot of the drivers here. Big slide there from Bravo. Must know that they're on television. Now, a lot of these corners at some point, maybe when the field spreads out a little bit further, I would like to try and get a bit of an onboard so you can sort of understand a bit more what is actually the difficulty of running these cars. Just taking a momentary break here. Just as we... Honestly, it's just a great... there's a lot of more close following, and again, maybe it's partially amplified or heavily amplified by the start of the race, but there's actually quite a lot of close running here. Let's have a quick look at the tyres again. We can see Bravo still running those softs 8 laps in. They seem to be working out quite well, but I imagine we'll be seeing Bravo dive any moment now into the pit lane for some hard tyres. That being said, doesn't have to go much further before potentially another set of softs are on the table if he's opting for the 2-stop strategy. So a very good job of holding everyone behind though. That is absolutely for sure. 2 rear-wheel drive cars there, Salami in the BMW directly behind. Leichenberg hoping to make some moves back forwards in the field after sort of dropping backwards a little bit. That being said, a little bit of a twitch there under braking from Bravo. He's actually going to let Salami through. We're going to see whether or not he can catch the tail of Salami, but it looks like maybe not. Instead, Leichenberg's maybe going to get a nice free move here as well down the straight. So they're going to the Bosch spark plugs sign. Towards the final corner now. This is going to, once again, moves can be made here from surprisingly far back with a good line. That is, however, not a good line. That is very much a mistake, unfortunately, from Bravo. I think we are probably going to see him dive into the pit lane this lap. We should be pulling to the right here. No, he's opting to stay out a little bit longer. Definitely not the move I would have personally chosen, but we will maybe see what the strategy is as we get a bit further into the race. Maybe it'll all pay off in the end. Speaking of strategies, Williams once again getting it all sort of mixed up going through into that first sort of tricky complex. You can sort of see on the track map, I think we're just going to see if we can catch an onboard of someone going through. Chris Hood now, you can see it's a huge elevation change into a very tricky slow corner with not much camber for you. And you can see it's a really tricky corner there. It's definitely where you're going to see, as we have seen multiple times already, some people just losing it a little bit going through there. Quite a consistency based difficulty at this circuit. There's not many corners. There's certainly enough to make it quite tricky to nail your lap every single time. That being said, looks like Hood maybe looking to set up a move here on Donahue, who's gone quite wide into that corner. Maybe doesn't have to actually do much at all. Donahue, yeah, slowing down quite a bit. Now it looks like a little bit further back on the grid, maybe got quite a big battle here. Yeah, we've got Fleck. I believe that's Nicola. Head. Fleck sending it down deep on the inside, but making quite a nice pass there in the end. Aggressive but fair move. And it looks like there's been just a little bit of a contact there, unfortunately, behind between Lux Blandford and I believe that was Conor McLeod, sorry, not Nicola. I apologise for the wrong name, but yeah, just a little bit of contact between McLeod and the car ahead. Not entirely sure, maybe just a little racing incident, 2 people converging lines. Not fully sure. There's been yet another bit of contact there, though, going through into the final corner. And that is very much not ideal for Lux Blandford, who is going to be able to keep going, thankfully. Speaking of keeping going, I think we've just seen Donahue take his pit stop. Going on to the hard tyre. A lot of the grid now on the hard tyre this race. Williams on softs. Seems to be doing a fairly good job, despite maybe the age of said tyres. Have a look now, yeah, 9 laps of age on those softs. I think the age is definitely starting to show on them a little bit. Now, I think we are probably going to start seeing some people dive into the pit lane who are on those softs. I'd be very surprised if we didn't see Bravo and Williams this lap jump in the pit lane. It's quite a spread out field at this point. And I think once pit stops happen a bit more, we'll probably see a little bit more of a jumbled up field once again, maybe some more overtakes. I think all the drivers on hards though, just kind of hoping to run really as long as they physically can. And then hopefully just use the softs at the end as kind of like a sprint stint. Maybe only use them for 8 laps. That does mean going quite long on the hard tyre though. So we will see definitely slightly different strategies to the previous race. There's a small tyre update across the grid. Maybe some drivers hoping that the softs would quite work for them in a way that they did in round 1, but a little bit of an unfortunate surprise there. Williams still not in the pit lane, maybe having contact with Bravo, who I think is still also on softs. Yeah, both drivers still on softs. Meanwhile, Saavedra is setting blisteringly fast lap times. At 38.159. We're going to go quickly jump over to him. See if we can get an idea of what's going on here. While it's a little bit quieter. See if we can get... There we go. Nice little onboard for us. Now, the interesting thing with Saavedra is he's very much got a lot of torque in that engine of this wagon Mercedes. And he is opting to use really very, very long gear ratios. It seems to be working out for him, really, which is the most impressive thing. You can see just second and you'd think he'd be losing power because he's got so much torque that's hard to control anyway. Going with such long gear ratios means that you can actually control it really, really well. And make the most out of that sort of low-end torque that his car does have. Now, 3 gears is definitely an interesting option. You can see he's actually now topping out a little bit as we come into the final corner, but it seems to be working for him as he comes up on lapped cars who are going to make contact with him. He's going to keep going though. Seems like, interestingly, the brick maybe a bit confused with a Volvo, really. Just sort of kept going despite a car coming into the side. I think that was McLeod and Blandford. Sorry, no, Matthew, Joshua Flinton and McLeod who made contact there. Again, a little bit unfortunate for the race leader, but thankfully not affected too badly by it. So we go back to this battle. We can see Toscanini trying to catch down Jefferson ahead. Both running incredibly similar lap times, literally half a tenth between the two of them. So it's going to be interesting. If Toscanini can just catch that a little bit harder, he'll then be in slipstream and he'll be able to do a little bit more about it. He's just outside of slipstream here at 1 second. Oh, my apologies. The usual settings just misbehaving a tiny bit. I do apologise. There we go, that's the menu we were trying to get at. So we can actually see last few laps, seems like Toscanini lap 9, they're having a bit of an off. But generally pretty equal times. Jefferson lap 10 lost a little bit of time. The Toscanini gained, but other than that, if you look at the times generally, very, very equal teams. Very, very equal cars, my apologies. Especially if we just get that gap open there. Because we are actually going to jump across to this battle here between Salami and Chris Hood. Salami looking for the long way round, but getting a little bit awkward. You can really see the bumps on this circuit. Just not quite able to do anything, but managing to make a sort of cut back, kind of. It's very difficult to tell on a corner like that with that sort of profile, but a very nice move there. Now sort of trying to run away desperately down the start-finish line. Hood now behind in slipstream. He's going to look down the inside, coming through the fast sweeper into the final corner. Now Salami is behind but has the better track position. He's going to opt to stay low and take quite a nice line through there, if I do say so. Just getting nice and close to the wall but not touching. And that is going to be a nice position gain, putting him up into 10th place. Again, maybe hoping for a little bit higher, but getting caught up in the start mess. Maybe not been the best for his season. I'm sure there'll be plenty of penalties handed around for anyone involved in that who was at fault. And we are actually going to now jump back to this ongoing battle between Toscanini and Jefferson. The Vega Autosports Opel Calibra, following the Pontiac Tigra ahead, the blue and red car. I believe they are slowly catching Leichenberg ahead. Just have a look at last laps. They are slowly catching, about second a lap. Depending on pit strategies, that might be another position for the both of them. Salami, unfortunately, not quite at the same pace as the two cars ahead, but has also been battling last lap, so we might see that pace increase as we go into next lap. Actually, I'm going to jump away from this battle quickly because we've just seen Nut jump into the pits along with Arihaga, looking for their pit box. Taking a quick stop. Nut leaving now. Stefanek somewhere else in the pit lane. Arihaga getting a nice launch out there and managing to beat out Stefanek, but it looks like Stefanek has maybe gained a little bit of time. So it's going to be interesting seeing who can get up to speed on this new set of hard tyres. I think now the whole grid is now, apart from Williams and Bravo, on hards. It's going to be a case of who can sort of get up to speed on this hard compound the quickest out of them. Lots of different pit strategies we have seen so far this race. Quite varied times to jump in the pits. It's going to be interesting to see if some cars actually do need to pit again. Obviously the first pit stop that we noticed was of Toby Larone, who's currently sat in 12th. Race win looks very unlikely, but if he doesn't have to pit again, that's probably a good 10 seconds he can shave off of the cars ahead. Anna Taranyenko now taking her pit stop in the C180 Mercedes, and seems to be fairly comfortably holding on to second here. McGregor pitted last lap, I believe, that 2-minute lap time, and we can see the gap does seem to have stayed around 8 seconds. Yeah, you can see Taranyenko just coming along the end of the S's section into the tricky first hairpin. That's been quite a comfortable stop for the British-Ukrainian driver. Now Hood, I believe, was passed by Larone on Larone's exit, but Hood is already back here again. It does seem like, if we look at previous laps, okay, Larone is actually gaining about a second and a half of that, but maybe making a little bit of a mistake or something, because he does not seem quite as far ahead as I'd have expected. Possibly getting caught up in more issues. We can see actually a little bit of compression for 4th place opening up. We're going to jump on board Terry Nutt, and we can see Leichenberg behind Jefferson Toscanini. I think we did maybe just see Toscanini or somebody we saw maybe on the sand. Not quite sure who. Either way though, I believe actually it's a lapped car. I think that might have been McLeod, the 17th, visiting the sand once again this race, unfortunately. Anyway, jump back forwards a little bit. You can see Leichenberg being hunted down by Jefferson. So we are well past the halfway point of this race now. Well, I say well past, a couple of laps past, but definitely a lot of drivers. Oh, big hit into the wall from Leichenberg there. That's definitely going to hurt his chances of staying ahead of Jefferson a little bit with that aero damage. We're just going to probably see that as we're coming through here now. Maybe some slight bodywork damage. Jefferson actually doesn't seem to be gaining that much, so maybe I'm just completely making it up as I go along. Slightly surprised by that. Toscanini does seem to have stabilised the gap to the car ahead. Last lap was a second slower, but possibly just a slower lap from the Italian in the Opel. I'm sure he's going to catch up a lot of ground here though on Jefferson as Jefferson gets up caught behind Leichenberg. Now all Leichenberg needs to do here is stay comfortable in his braking points, don't push anything too hard. And it seems like he's got the pace to keep these two behind him. It obviously depends on what his pit strategy is though. We're going to have a quick look at tyre life actually. You can see 16 laps on the hards. A lot of drivers still on the same tyre set they actually started the race on at this point. Svedra has basically kept those hards going the whole race really. Setting continuously quicker and quicker laps. Now is Toscanini into the pits. Now I wonder, is he going to try and drag a set of softs for the rest of the race? 10 laps. It's going to be a tricky thing for him to try and do, but if he can, that might be the play that gets him ahead of Leichenberg if Leichenberg still needs to pit, which I believe most drivers do actually still need to pit. Svedra actually 29 seconds clear at this point is genuinely an outstanding drive from Saavedra. Definitely helped by the issues on lap 1 by most of the rest of the grid. So actually see Ari Haga catching up to these two ahead, doing a 38.6 last lap. Now Haga is on the hards as well, so maybe just have a quick look. Still actually on the same set of hards apparently. So maybe just getting more into a rhythm. However, this lap we might see the overtake on Leichenberg finally happen by Jefferson. Side by side down the little ridge. Side by side, continuing through the kink. Jefferson ahead, but Leichenberg maybe with the slightly better position. Big slide from Jefferson. It seems like he's managed to control it. A bit of a mistake. I'd take it entirely back. A bit of a mistake from Willems. Maybe an intentional high line there from Jefferson. That said, Leichenberg has now dived into the pit lane for his pit stop, followed in by Willems. That is going to give a very comfortable move forward for Toby Larone, who is on still 18 laps off, 18 lap hards, I apologise, so we're going to see a change there at some point relatively soon for Toby Larone. That said, Velo Toscanini now ahead of Leichenberg, so it has worked out for him, that strategy. I did miss out. He's on soft tyres, so he's going to be really trying to pump in some very quick laps here. He's got the clean air to do it as well. Maybe able to catch Salami just before the end of the race. It's going to be 10 laps on those soft tyres, so it's going to be a tricky ask, but definitely not impossible. And we do actually finally see Saavedra enter the pit lane, or exit the pit lane for us. Not overtaken, but passed by the, now I believe lapped, cars of Chris Hood. Kind of awkwardly in the middle of this battle over the lap cars. Saavedra really needs to be careful here and not get sort of caught up too much in their sort of fighting, both metaphorical and physical, as we've seen, unfortunately. Definitely not intentional by anyone, but definitely some bumps that maybe could have been avoided. Seems like we're also seeing Jefferson enter the pits this lap. Toblerone moving up into 6th. Hunt down Arihaga ahead. Jefferson coming out just alongside Toscanini, actually, and Toscanini's going to get a very easy move there, so that is actually a positive gain for the Italian. I am curious, Jefferson has opted for the hard tyre. Let's see how that plays out between himself and Toscanini. Now, Taranenko, only 4.8 seconds gap. However, I don't believe... We have seen in the pit lane, maybe opting just to take petrol. Maybe just opting to go the full way on one set of hard tyres, really try and trim down that pit stop length. Compare last laps, we can actually see 38.3 from Taranenko. We'll see next lap from Saavedra. 38.6 just crossing the line. See if there's much more in the tank for Taranenko to maybe upset Saavedra here. However, he's looking potentially on for a Grand Slam from Saavedra, which I don't think we've seen very many of in the history of CTC, so definitely one of the strongest drives we've seen, especially in such new cars. Every driver's still getting used to them. Now, Toscanini has pulled a second on Jefferson. It will be interesting to see whether or not he can continue to pull that little bit of time. Up to 1.3 seconds now. Last lap will compare... well, it was quicker, but we don't have accurate timing data just yet. I believe Jefferson just pitted last lap, so still got the pit exit lap time there. I'm just seeing that the gap has stabilised for about 5 seconds between Saavedra and Taranenko. Saavedra probably appreciating getting clear of all the lap traffic at this point. Taranenko now actually coming up to the battle between Bravo and Chris Hood. Felipe Bravo in 14th. Goes low. Gets a little bit on the curb, a little bit upset, but Taranenko making the pass on the outside. Now obviously, Bravo desperately try to follow, not try to sort of lose the car ahead too much time, but at the same time, desperately trying to tuck in, lose as little time as possible, because that is positioned just ahead of P2. That being said, looks like there's been a mistake from Chris Hood. Maybe it was intentional letting the car pass, but that has actually put Bravo right behind once again. Both drivers probably quite sort of fired up after this sort of disruption. Try and get really the last dregs of performance out of their cars. Let's have a look at the tyre age actually. 20 laps. Allegedly. I'm not entirely sure I believe that number. I don't think I saw them pit on lap 2. Oh! I believe Saavedra has gone around. I'm not entirely sure what's happened there. maybe a lapped car incident, but that has actually moved Saavedra now into second. Taranenko takes first. I think maybe an incident with some lap traffic there, unfortunately, for Saavedra, unless it was a mistake of his own accord. That's very unfortunate if it was lap traffic that has made him lose that position. However, race wins definitely still possible. 2 seconds to Taranenko. If we have a look at last lap, Saavedra was quicker before the incident that lap. About half a second quicker than Taranenko, so definitely possible. Saavedra gets nice and smoothly past the lapped car, of Chris Hood. Seems like Taranenko now running into similar lap traffic issues. Number 70 there, really getting quite sort of all over the place. Definitely lessons in traffic management for all drivers on the grid, probably to be taken away from today. So far been relatively competent traffic management though, we've seen. I think I just heard a little bit of a lock of Taranenko, going quite deep. Saavedra now looking to go around the outside. Probably hoping that the car in front, on his inside now, gives the position. He has actually had to yield. The 70 going off into the wall. Kind of achieves what he wanted out of that whole interaction, let's be honest. That being said, Toscanini and Jefferson now actually battling once again. Maybe the soft's not quite working out for Toscanini. Jefferson probably finding quite a lot of pace in the hard, in fairness. So now come flying down the hill. Yeah, a bit of a smashed windscreen for Toscanini. So, I mean, maybe there's a little bit of an incident as well. Not sure about it, but maybe it's been smashed the whole time and I've only just noticed. But yeah, definitely a feature-filled race. Or features, maybe not the right word. Action-filled, definitely. We're going to see Toscanini follow Jefferson down the straight. And we're going to see, is he going to be able to close the gap? It looks like Jefferson maybe just having that little bit extra horsepower in the car, I think. A little bit more torque. He's able to make a bit more out of it. A very, very torquey engine of Jefferson. It's managing out rear-wheel drive very well considering the numbers we're talking about. If it is the engine, I believe so. I do believe we have a car on the grid, I'm not sure which car it is, that has over 1,000 Nm of torque. I think it is the Alfa Romeo, which is unfortunately currently in 19th. Definitely a very large torque number there to manage. Looks like Jefferson maybe get a little bit loose over the sand there. He's sliding all the way through that corner as well. Puts Toscanini right back at the battle here as they both close down on Salami. We can see last lap, actually not too different, only 4/10 between Toscanini and Salami. Jefferson 7/10. Now, can the BMW hold these two back? There's 5 laps, well, 4.5 laps to go pretty much. Saavedra setting a new fastest lap. He's definitely fighting Taranenko for this win with everything he can after that little bit of bad luck with the spin. Again, not sure what quite caused it. But either way, that is past now. All he can do is just keep looking forward and try and get the move before the end of the race. Jefferson catching quite quickly on Salami here, actually. Going inside, makes the move quite clearly. Salami now a decent way back. It looks like the two cars, that might be it. That might be Jefferson nice and clear now. It seems like definitely the top speed of Jefferson's car, very, very strong. Maybe it's just the small form factor, definitely helping the slipstream. Very short wheelbase car, so definitely a tricky one to control around the circuit. Got lots of cars slow on the racing line here. A bit of flashing from Salami, very justified flashing. With so many cars all over the road, really. Toscanini also managing to get through that that group without too much trouble or worry. At this point, Salami sort of keeping looking forward as much as he can, but now really sort of worrying about Toscanini, seeing if Salami can hold on to 8th. If he can. Bit of a lock-up. The driver. You can see Toscanini has, over the past few laps, generally been 2 tenths quicker at the minimum. That being said, we're probably going to start seeing a little bit of a drop in pace from Toscanini here as we enter the closing stages of the race. I think we've actually already started to see that. Big slide there from Toscanini. That's not going to do his softs any favours there, I imagine. Quite warm from that big slide. That might actually have just secured Salami 8th place quite comfortably. Well, I'm going to jump a little bit further down the grid. It's battle for 14th right now between Bravo and Fleck. Side by side, opting to tuck back in instead. Williams behind, just 5 seconds. Does seem to potentially be catching the two. Bravo and Fleck both pitted last lap. It's very much neck and neck. I'm going to have a quick look at tyre life as well for these two. It's both on, apparently both on hards for 24 laps. Now I wonder if there's been a slight issue of when the drivers are staying on hards. The game doesn't know if they've put a new set on or not, or the broadcast overlay doesn't know if they put a new set on. Big moment there from Bravo. This is probably going to be quite the battle to the end. Just 2 laps to go. And this is pretty much for the last points paying position. 15th is the last position you can finish in where you score points in the championship. So this is actually quite an important battle despite seemingly being quite far down the grid. Williams there 15th, Bravo there 15th after making quite a big mistake. Looks like Fleck has managed to pull away a little bit of a gap. I do apologise, I wonder if I've been getting the, yeah, sorry, that is Leichenberg. That is Leichenberg lapping, my apologies. I saw the Mercedes and thought it was the other Mercedes. No, that is that Mercedes through. They are not battling. However, Williams is battling Bravo here. And makes the move quite comfortably as we enter the second to last lap. Probably the last lap relatively soon. And I think that is probably going to be a race. We don't seem to have any great onboard cameras here for the C180, but we'll opt for this. Rod on board for this last lap. I think it has actually calmed down a little bit. And definitely, compared to previous seasons, much lower revving cars across the grid. Which has been interesting to see. A lot of drivers opting for torque over maybe raw speed, raw horsepower, sorry. Which has unfortunately made them slightly less interesting engine sounds, slightly less screaming than previous seasons, where we'd see up to 12,000 RPM. Bit of a lock up through here. I'm just going to have a quick look across the grid, double check. Yeah, it does seem to have mostly settled down. Svedra has actually managed to do a great job catching back up, as far as he has, you know, 1.4 seconds after the big accident. Still a few lockups from Taranenko. Our final corner is going to be very important, because it is trickier than you think, and especially when you're on sort of You know, you're getting quite close to the end of the race. You got to think a little bit just carefully. Don't get too overly confident. That being said, though, 1.4 seconds. Unless there is a mistake, that is Taunenko taking the win at Riverside. Very, very wide line there, but it's probably a nice little bit of safety. Yeah, you can see nowhere near the wall. And that is Taunenko taking the race win there, followed by Saavedra in second. Now, I'm sure McGregor will be taking... sorry, not McGregor. Yeah, McGregor will be taking third. Please ignore it says Lux Blandford. That is a lapped car. So we just see very close battle between Donahue and his teammate, Chris Hood. The timing will sort itself out as drivers cross the line. Taunenko, Saavedra, McGregor is your podium, followed by Nutt, Hager taking 5th, Toblerone takes 6th. A good recovery after a more than disappointing start, let's be honest. Now at this point it's quite a few cars still left across the line. Jefferson here taking 7th, followed by Salami. Toscany takes 9th, just ahead of Leichenberg for 10th. That is your top 10. Definitely a chaotic race. Quite an interesting one though at that. And we're going to actually move away from... Actually, we'll just maybe just get a little bit of the cars returning to pit lane. Might see some post-race drifting as we sometimes see from Hager and Lerone. I hear the downshifts. Sounds like Lerone's trying to get it sideways. Maybe struggling a little bit on worn rubber, but nice little drift there. We might see something more in the final corner here. Oh no, we are in the pit lane. Well, that is round 2. All completed now. Once again, race winner Anna Taranenko, which is quite a good running from the Mercedes driver. 5th in Road America, now 1st here. However, Saavedra, it's a 2nd place again. Very unfortunate it wasn't a 1st. Vasco probably quite comfortably seat him at the top of the timing tower, especially after the DNF from Mayonnaise, his previous round's race winner. Lerone made a good recovery. Well, I'm sure Autodrom Most, which is the next round, we're hoping to make a little bit more of an impact on the podium. I'm sure next round we'll see lots more good racing, hopefully slightly cleaner. Definitely a chaotic round, as has been said multiple times, but I'd like to thank everyone who's been tuned in. If you want to join our Discord, it is a link in the live stream description. There's always 8 o'clock our streams when we are during a season. But thank you all very much for watching, and have a good evening, and see you next week for Autodrom Most.